Hey guys, this is Keenan Fry, and we are back. Instead of working on the letter A, I thought I'd take a short break on that, and I would instead work on the Pharaoh. I've actually technically done a teeny bit of prep work on it already, just to kind of like get myself mentally in the right spot. I got a friend, Abraham Rodriguez. I want to give him a shout out. What's up, Abe? My old buddy from San Jose State. What's up, Burrito? How you doing, man? He recommended to me two artists, Tycho and this guy right here, Fortet. And so I'm going to listen to Fortet and Tycho today while working on this. And then tomorrow while drawing, I'm going to listen to some music that a friend of mine, John Ellerby, sent me. So you got to reach out to me and tell me about a record you want me to listen to while drawing. Now, just a heads up so I don't get flagged for copyright, I'm not playing this music in the video. I'm playing it on my headphones and I'm listening to it. And what you can do is go look up this music on your own and listen to it on your own time. But I'm not gonna play any of this music in the background because that's how I get my videos flagged and then my shit gets taken down. So I'm not fucking around with any of that. With that said, I am gonna shut up and get to work. So I think I'm going to start with Fortet because this is a new album and this looks kind of cool. Okay, first off, the record's great. Want to put that out there. This is a cool record. What was I doing? I spent a lot of time like looking at this and thinking about this for just a few seconds. What I was trying to keep track of is my line series. I do everything in pairs because when you have a container, all my shapes are containers. That's what to think about it is like boxes within boxes within boxes. Everything is a subcutaneous form. And think about it as like vacuoles within a cell, and you store, objects inside that vacuole, which means like everything is a compositional border. Because everything is a contained form in that manner, if it breaks form, that's bad because it damages the container that the shapes are in. And so like everything has to have a perfect uniformity, so the lines run in parallels. They run in couples, 2s, 4s, and 6s. But every once in a while I run into situations where I get a third line, but generally it comes from sharing a baseline. So think of it like this. If you have a couple and you have another couple and they're two separate pairs, what you really have is a gap right here, a gap in between the couple, and then a gap over here, and you have 3 gaps. But then you get situations where if they share a baseline, let's say one of the fingers overlap, you now have an even number of gaps, one here and one here, and an odd number of containers. And the only way to solve that problem is if the line branches off and goes back to being a fourth one, branching off, it doesn't have something to run to in parallel, it has a branch. So it has to return back to being an odd set, which is why I don't like odd sets, because I have to flip my thinking from thinking of groups of, even groups of 4 or whatever, but generally groups of 4 because I'm usually running 2 shapes in parallel, or groups of 6 where it's 3 shapes in parallel. But generally speaking, I'm working in evens and I'm running things in parallel, or if I'm working in odds, then I have to share a baseline and I have to literally flip my logic when I'm designing the lines and designing the shapes. And that's really confusing for me because I have to one, backtrack and make sure I didn't make a mistake and accidentally leave an unfinished line somewhere else So I have to first, like, I call that proofreading the art. I have to make sure I didn't leave an unfinished line, which is kind of like an incomplete sentence. If you have an unfinished line somewhere and then you have a second unfinished line and you forgot about the first one, and so if you have two unfinished lines, you're still working in groups of 4 because it's an even pair of unfinished lines. You can connect them together and get the series back to where it needs to be. So when you think about it, if you have 4 lines, but instead of one of them circuiting back and completing the circuit, you have an unfinished line, you end up with 5 lines, one group of 3 and one group of 2. And that's where the parallelism breaks. So you have to make sure that it really is a group of 3 and it really is a group of 2. Because a lot of the times it's a group of 3 and another group of 3, and you just have 2 add-on unfinished lines that just need to be connected back and revert the form back to 3 groups of 2. I need a third arm to demonstrate that, but you get the idea. Conceptually speaking, like keeping track of which lines are going to form complete containers and which lines are just isolated unto themselves and need to have a shared baseline is really important. So I was staring at it for a while, and there were a couple of seconds where I picked up the pen and then I put it back down because I was paranoid about whether or not I had missed something. And that's my brain trying to like edit this, like, and proofread it. That's me editing the drawing. It's like I'm making sure all my lines synchronize up. It's not like, oh, I drew a bad line and I want to erase it and redo it. That's completely beside the point. The reason why I picked the pen up and put it down was because I was thinking, did I actually God, I'm tired. Did I actually draw that properly? That's the real reason why I was starting and stopping and just like, wait, what was I doing? And trying to really check to make sure, like, hey, I got this right, or, oh shit, I forgot something. But I have it figured out. I have solved the problem. And now the next thing to do is to just kind of keep working at it and maybe make a few more accents and then probably start inking. That's just like, that's amazing, man. What the hell is this shit? What the fuck? This is like something out of Blade Runner. Like the voices and the strings. Like that scene where they go to the Tyrell Corporation and they're talking to the lady who's the replicant, but she doesn't know that she's a replicant. And there's those strings in the background. Oh my God. This is fucking crazy. This is the fucking shit. This shit is the fucking shit. Fucking A. Okay, you see that right there, how it says fix? That's a little mistake I made. Fuck, it's hard to move this thing around. So this little branch right here I closed off, but I actually want to open it up to connect these two together. So I'm going to fix that in the next draft, which is why I wrote that. I literally have like hundreds of these little notes throughout all of my drafts. Oh, and there's like a little coffee splotch right there. That's a little dab of coffee right there. But anyway, with this fix thing, right? So the whole idea is like whenever I make a little screw up, I go back and I write a little note to myself to know like, oh yeah, I got to go back and do that. But you see with this camera right here that I'm pointing at, you can see how zoomed in it is. That's like a tiny little mistake. But I pay attention to that crap because I'm like, oh, it's not, you know, unified. And you'll notice it because when it's painted, you'll notice that it's a contained form and not a connected form. That's what I mean by subcutaneous forms and container forms. These are subcutaneous forms that are connected to each other. They're not container forms. A container form is like you have a big Tupperware and then a smaller Tupperware inside the bigger Tupperware. And it's like you're putting your Tupperware in storage. So like you got your kitchen and you got all your Tupperware and you got the big Tupperware for like your lettuce. Then you got like the small Tupperwares for like, you know, leftovers of like, you know, your steak or whatever, your chicken. And so you got the little Tupperware for that, but then you got the big Tupperware, which is your big salad bowl, right? And so like the little Tupperwares are their own contained forms that fit in the bigger Tupperware, like, you know, the Russian dolls that stack inside each other, but they're not connected. They're individually contained. So like everything in this piece is technically connected by one form or another. And it's all essentially like, in essence, this is all one line. The container, the outline form. That's the outline form with all of its subcutaneous connections. There are a few forms in here that are not connected. Obviously, these shapes in here up. Zoom this back out so you can actually see what the hell I'm pointing at. Is it going to autofocus? So obviously these shapes in here are not connected. They can't be, but they're outline shapes and they are container shapes. They are sub-containers, but the containing form, the subcutaneous, they're subcutaneous forms of a larger outline shape that is connected to everything else. So everything in this is technically touching. There's no isolated shapes that are parallel to each other and are not at some point or another connecting. So everything is designed to intersect somewhere, which is part of my design philosophy, is everything needs to be connected somehow. And the connection points are really important. Some of them are really big, some of them are really subtle. I like the really subtle ones because they're super intense. You have to like look for them and it's this tiny little spot that like connects everything together. And then you see that tiny little spot and you're like, whoa, that's so crazy. It's that tiny little spot that's connecting everything. And it's like, yeah, it's just that little spot that's doing it. And the entire idea is like, if I sent this as like an STL file or some shit like that, you could literally like wood etch with a laser cutter into like, you know, some MDF and like cut this out. Like that's the entire like philosophy. That wasn't the intent when I started drawing like this. My idea was to just play around with negative space and positive space, and that was my interest. It was just positive space, negative space. It was like on or off. It was binary, and it was just about training my mind to keep track of negative, positive space. But the result of that is like basically anything I make, I could pretty much like send to a 3D laser cutter and it could etch it and make like a spray paint template where you would have negative space and you could spray paint it, or you could invert the template and make the positive space the holes and spray paint that down. So the whole idea of this is that like it can be inverted, it can be done in so many different ways. It wasn't intended to be done that way. That was just something I accidentally stumbled upon, but that's how my artwork has resulted. That's the result of my work. That's like my natural style. It results in that way. So I don't know, one of these days I'm going to start printing my letters. That's probably the first thing I'm going to start with, is the letters, printing those out and getting like boards of MDF and sending them to a laser cutter shop and having like, you know, the acid drip etched into a wooden plank and, you know, hanging that on my wall or something like that. Or like dead, you know, which is my slogan, dead, despite exhaustion, always dream. Like putting that on my wall or something, you know? Like something along those lines. Just something like etched in wood, and you can feel it, you can touch the texture and feel it like etched in there, and then you're like, oh shit, this is some crazy ass shit, you know? That's really my goal for the drawings. Anyway, so that's how I'm thinking about that, but that's a separate rant. And the only reason why I was sharing that with you is because I made that mistake. I showed you where I wrote the words fix because I wanted you to know that that's how I think about things. So with that nonsense out of the way, I'm going to get back to drawing and playing the music. This record's almost over. I'm going to switch to the next one soon. It's a pretty good record. There's a few tracks in here that were kind of hit or miss, but, and by that I mean they were misses. But overall, I really liked this record. Thanks, Abe, for recommending this to me. It was a good record. Definitely a worthwhile listen. I think that's the end of the record. Yeah, that's the end of the record. All right, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. Tycho. Tycho died. Full album. Here we go. Another recommendation by Abraham Rodriguez. What's up, Burrito? My dude. I don't know if you can see that. So see how close those come? I almost screwed that up, but I know what I was intending to do there. I just didn't fully trace it, and then it I don't know. Fuck it, I'm not going to bother explaining it. I got to work. Am I still recording audio? Yeah, I am. I'm a dumbass. Whatever. It's not a secret to anyone. That is me being a dumbass. I think anybody who's seen any of my videos knows I'm a dumbass. I am a dumb motherfucker. Alright, here we go. All right, so now here's the cool part. I'm gonna double up the lines, and to accent it, I'm gonna give it like a weighted trim. But for that part, I think I wanna do it with the pencil first just to feel it out. So I'm gonna finish up a few lines that go around it just so I know I have those ironed out. And then I'm gonna get into accenting it. I'll show you what I'm gonna talk about in just a second. Just gonna knock out these lines real quick. Okay, there we go. So that little thing is done. So now I'm going to show you the trick. Okay, fuck it. No guts, no glory. Let's go for it. Sometimes I can't stand it. How it just did that. And you can hear like the buzz from the sawtooth sine wave. Like sometimes it sounds like a tattoo gun. It just sounds like a tattoo gun right in my ear. Just sometimes I can't stand that. That said, this is a great album. Tycho's pretty fucking stellar. This guy's just fucking sick. Whatever he's doing, it's working. This has been a hell of a project. It took me 2 hours to figure out how to redraft the shit on the bottom and fix this and then do everything up top. I actually was technically working on this before. So I've actually probably been working on this for 3 hours because I was on the phone for a full hour hour and a half actually with my buddy Abe. So I've actually been working on this for 3 hours even though only 2 of it's recorded. We're going to work on this. We're going to work some more on the A in the next day or so. Some more drawing shit coming up. I'm Keenan Fry. This is the Ass Drip. Thank you for having patience while I work through this and figure it out. And I will see you next time. This is the Ass Drip. Poke you in the eye.